So here's a little story about barriers. I put a barrier on the stairs to stop my young dog from going up to the bedrooms. He grew up. The barrier need not even be there anymore. In his mind, it's still there, even though the original function of it isn't functioning anymore. What's more, if I put that barrier on the floor and put a dog treat behind it, my dog won't go past it because he's become afraid of the barrier. And I think we become habituated to barriers in just this same way. So let's welcome then this video on the barrier breaker full moon in Capricorn. Hello, I'm astrologer Linda Wood, and this video is about our barrier breaker full moon in Capricorn. This will be occurring in the UK on the 10th of July at about 8:30 in the evening, and of course you will need to adjust for other time zones. We may associate the Capricorn full moon with the upholding of boundaries, of traditions, of structures, but I think this one is very, very different. Firstly, this is the first full moon we have had after the ingress of Uranus into Gemini just 2 days before our full moon. So that is a game changer for looking at barriers. Uranus is nothing if not a barrier breaker, the ability to push beyond, the ability to break through, to revolutionize. Furthermore, this full moon at 26 degrees 30 south of the ecliptic, that's not its zodiacal degree, that's the degree, the position it is on the ecliptic, is technically out of bounds. The normal bounds would be within 23 degrees of the sun. And so we can see this as a bit of a rule breaker moon, a moon that is definitely beyond the normal barriers. And there's something else as well. The ruler of the moon in Capricorn, which is Saturn, has just moved into Aries, where it is conjunct next to Neptune. And there, at that kind of creator degree of early degrees of Aries that kickstart the entire zodiac, Neptune is in the process of blending with Saturn, dissolving old barriers, with the intention of building new structures, new supportive structures. So in many ways, we see this moon as aligned to this process of shedding the old and looking towards building what is new, enduring and better. Now, I live in the UK. I'm within 20 miles of the capital, so I've cast this chart for London. But I'm rather glad that I have, because it really is reiterating, reinforcing the symbolism that I'm seeing here. So in this chart, the ascendant for the full moon is actually Aquarius, which again is about personal freedoms, about thinking outside of the box, about pushing things, the future, looking in a future orientated way. In the chart too, the North Node in Pisces is positioned in the first house. And I think that's really interesting because it picks up on that Aries starter energy. And I think it's about us finding the balance between a compassionate service in the world and being caring, compassionate and kind, but also that sacred service to self, of following our life path, of being true to ourselves and becoming all that we can become, which is another very important thing for us to do. Now, also, the ruler, Uranus, ruler of both of the ascendant of the chart, but also a key player here, we've already talked about it going into Gemini, is sitting right on the IC of this chart. So it's very much at the bottom of the chart and looking perhaps at things that we can leave behind us and move forward from. So break away, break loose, break free. I want to just add to some funny stories I was telling. In my previous video on Uranus going into Gemini, I told some personal stories about Uranus, which has been passing over my ascendant. And I have the final little piece, well, perhaps the final piece of that little jigsaw, which I will share with you. And that is that, yes, on Monday, the 7th, when Uranus passed into Gemini, I had a dental appointment and an old back molar was extracted. I had an old back tooth taken out, and that seems to me deeply appropriate. I mean, it is a change to my physical self, and it's this rooting out of something old that no longer is helpful or serving, and also something that's linked very much to Saturn, the Capricorn bone structure side of things. These old roots that need to go. And I think that's a process that is symbolic of a process that we need to be in now. Now, did I enjoy the tooth extraction? Well, of course I didn't. The dentist was brilliant. It wasn't a very dramatic episode, but of course I didn't enjoy it. However, it was something for my benefit and for moving forward, something old that was causing me issues that needed to go. And that is kind of how sometimes we may find all of the boundary breaking. It may put us temporarily into situations that feel like tooth extraction, a little unpleasant. But there's so much beyond that we can look forward to. You know, it had to go, it has to come out. And it's the same with so many aspects of our lives that are just not helpful to us anymore. And in this chart, the moon is in the 11th house and the sun in the 5th, where we also have Jupiter. So the energy of Jupiter, whilst not conjunct, is very much in the 5th house. And the sun in the 5th house is about that creative expression, that very necessary nurturing and expression of self. And positioned opposite the 11th, where we have the collective, where we have the group, it is showing that it is by developing and expanding the self that we will be able to take service into the 11th, into the collective, and help that building process that the Capricorn moon is part of. Now, furthermore, the moon is trining Mars, and the sun is sextiling Mars. So there is this turbo boost of energy to both of them from the planet of action there. We are being spurred very personally to engage here. Having Saturn and Neptune in Aries, of those very first degrees, speaks so much to our selfhood, to finding courage to know who we are, discover who we are, and have the courage and bravery to be who we are. And this is echoed again by freedom-loving Uranus's move into Gemini. But breaking old patterns, will to some extent stir up discomforts. And yet it is only by going through the discomfort levels, which after all may be the same illusions that my dog suffers from about boundaries, that they're just embedded in him, even if they're not particularly useful now. It is only by going beyond those that we're able to really access and be who we are and claim our own sovereignty. Uranus is conjunct close to Venus, our planet of self-worth and also our planet of relating. And so again, it is this communication between the two of revolutionizing our self-worth, changing our concept of our self-worth, and also developing that in our relationships of self to other. And all of this with that Mars-driven creativity and confidence of self-expression going towards the sun, as I've said. This is telling Chiron in Aries, this wounded sense of the self, that we have a right to agency. We have a right to take up space on the earth. We are here, and we're rightly so. And existing and being who we are is of prime importance. We're also looking with Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio, in this case in the 9th house, at a redefining of philosophies to do with relationship, to do with beliefs, that these are, it is time to turn these around, turn these over, investigate which serve and which don't, and again, break through the barriers with those which do not. I want to go back, as I have so many times in this video, to Uranus. Uranus is just inched into 0 degrees of Gemini. And at 1 degree, we have Sedna. Now, there are stories, mythologies associated with Uranus and Sedna, which I think it's interesting to share here, because I think this is their time has come around. Now, Uranus in mythology was the father of Kronos, who we would know as Saturn. And Saturn is the lord of time, is the lord of structure, was the original boundary marker. It was the planet that, the furthest planet we could see with the naked eye, and it marked the boundaries of the known universe. Uranus we didn't discover until the latter part of the 18th century, and it lies beyond that, and we needed telescopes to see it. But the mythology goes that Saturn, lord of time, Kronos, from which we get chronometers and the notion of time, castrated his father. So he took away his father's power and potency, so that while we were living with Saturn as the outer limits of the known universe and living within those boundaries and restrictions, Uranus wasn't in our consciousness. It wasn't operating. But it is coming increasingly online. And I think with this move of Uranus into Gemini, we're going to be seeing so much more of what is beyond the boundaries, of new concepts of time and space and invention and development and thought, way beyond anything we can ever have imagined. But it is interesting because we have in that mythology the notion of Uranus being mutilated. And Sedna, the Inuit goddess, was similarly, well, not similarly mutilated, but she was mutilated in a different way. She was escaping from a very bad marriage. In her father's canoe, a storm blew up. The canoe was in jeopardy. And her father, if you like, the patriarchy, the rule of the fathers, he sacrificed Sedna by throwing her overboard into the icy waters. She clung to the canoe. He chopped off her fingers and her limbs. She fell down into the waters. But then she became enormously creative and created the goddess. She became the goddess of the oceans, created life, created all of the sea creatures, and this amazing burgeoning of life in the ocean. Now, life came from the sea, did it not? You know, our life on land emerged from it. Uranus is the sky god, and we know that his consort was Gaia, the earth goddess. But we can see Sedna as a crucial element of life on Earth. The oceans are a part of Earth, and she is a very important creatress here. And so I think we have these two forces, both having been mutilated and just, limited in the past, coming online. And they're coming online in the sign of Gemini, where I think Sedna is trawling the psychological hidden depths, if you like, below the conscious mind, and creating there and linking us back to those really deep connections. While Uranus is catapulting us into higher mind, and both affecting Gemini, our everyday consciousness. And Pluto in Aquarius, agent of slow but sure transformation, is making a trine, a very positive, harmonious relationship to Uranus, helping there with these very necessary movements towards transformation and transmutation. But I think we've got to take all of this very personally. It seems to me that our signature, our need to move forward, inhabit bigger versions of ourselves, push the boundaries for ourselves, instigate changes for ourselves, grow ourselves, become more of ourselves, is absolutely crucial here. Change will be happening. Inevitably, change will be happening in the external world. But we are a crucial element of that. We feed into that collective. And as I said in my previous video, the more we can be the agents of our own change, the more we can push ourselves to go forward, to expand, to do things that perhaps feel a little outside of our comfort zone. The more we can do that, the less we become a victim of external events. We can live the planets from within. We don't have to be so affected by them from without. So I think that the big message from this moon is that we break through the old barriers and boundaries that we may have in our minds, like my dog I was talking about at the beginning, and that we move forward and grow. And it is time to free ourselves and be ourselves. But we have to be prime agents in doing that. No one's coming to rescue us here. We have to do it. I think that is our message from this boundary breaker Capricorn moon. Now, whilst there's more, always more and more I could say, I think that I don't want to over-egg the custard. I think there is enough here and a coherent through message here that I wanted to convey on my own approach to this full moon in Capricorn. I'll leave you here. I see it as very positive, very forward-looking, and I wish you very well through it and for it. Thank you, and I'll see you again soon.